Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Glad to welcome you back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and welcome to Crimson Drive, presented to you by Coca-Cola. Hope everyone enjoyed their Memorial Day weekend. Certainly, the Crimson Tide baseball and softball teams did, as we got the great news on Monday that Alabama is heading to the NCAA baseball tournament for the first time since 2014, and the softball team is going back to Oklahoma City to play in the Women's College World Series. So as we start to take a look at what's coming up on the show today, just keep in mind it's a great time of the year for baseball, for softball. That's what our focus will be today on Crimson Drive. Taking a look at what's coming up on the show, first a conversation with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Brad Bohannon, to recap the great week in Hoover. Alabama went 2-2 against really outstanding competition in the SEC tournament, so a conversation with Coach Bo will be coming up first, and then we'll go to Oklahoma City for the rest of the show. We'll check in with Tom Canterbury and Robertson, as our broadcasters for softball have a full breakdown of the super regional wins against Kentucky and what's ahead this week in Oklahoma City, and also we'll get a full preview of Alabama against Arizona from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Patrick Murphy. Softball team again in the Women's College World Series, 13th time that has happened. Did such a great job in Tuscaloosa over Kentucky getting those victories, as Alabama is very hot entering this tournament, and the Crimson Tide are hoping to win their first national championship since the 2012 season, and the run in Oklahoma City will begin today against Arizona, coming up at 6 p.m. Central. Baseball team, again last week, 2-2 at the SEC tournament, victories against top 20 RPI teams in South Carolina and Tennessee before the week ended with a couple of losses to the Florida Gators as well as Tennessee in the second time those teams met in a 3-day span. And now it's Alabama getting the great news on Monday that the Crimson Tide are going back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2014, as the Crimson Tide will be in the NCAA's Ruston Regional. Alabama's the number 3 seed, will face the number 2 seed, NC State, coming up on Friday. And coming up, we will have a full breakdown of the regional with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Brad Bohannon. Also, tip of the cap to the Alabama rowing team. Last week on the show, we previewed Alabama at the NCAA championships with the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Glenn Putre, and Alabama ended up having a 13th overall finish at its first ever NCAA championships. And for the good work that Coach Putre and his staff have done, they earned Regional Coach of the Year and Staff of the Year honors. So a huge tip of the cap and roll tide to Glenn Putre and the Alabama rowing team on a tremendous season. In some other news, in men's golf, Thomas Ponder was named the GCAA Ping All-Region team. It's the first time he has won this honor. He was also second-team All-SEC this past year. He leads Alabama in stroke play at 71.40 and a plus 2.0 average over par. He was one of only 2 players to have played in all 10 events on the year for Alabama. In volleyball, they're adding TCU graduate transfer Sarah Swanson as the middle blocker arrives in Tuscaloosa after a 4-year career at TCU. She played in 83 matches over 4 seasons for the Horned Frogs, and a very, very solid player, now part of Coach Devine's team here in Tuscaloosa. Then finally, in terms of Alabama athletics, we've talked before about the Advantage, the new program that's coming in for the Crimson Tide, and now they're going to partner with Compass, the national image and likeness platform for its student athletes to help maximize their name, image, and likeness opportunities. Compass platform will also provide Alabama student athletes with NIL education, deal disclosure, and compliance monitoring tools in one easy-to-use platform. So another advantage for Alabama using the Compass NIL platform going along with the Advantage program here at the University of Alabama. We start today's interviews with a conversation with baseball head coach Brad Bohannon. So many good things to talk about for the Crimson Tide, getting the news they are headed back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2014. Quite a milestone, and what's been a year of milestones for Alabama's head coach Brad Bohannon. Joined now by the head coach of the Crimson Tide baseball team, back in an NCAA regional. Brad Bohannon joins us from his office. And Coach Bo, congratulations on getting Alabama back to where everyone wants to see the postseason in the NCAA. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Roger. Thank you. And just so happy that we got in. I know it was close, and just so proud of our kids for fighting till the end. And we knew going to Hoover that we had to stick around for a while, and it wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't. We played 2 really good teams right out of the gate in South Carolina and Tennessee, who's a top 5 club. And, our guys found a way to win both of those games, which was huge. And luckily it was enough to get us over the hump and get us into the tournament.
On Monday, on Memorial Day, the selection show, everybody was watching. I know there wasn't a big watch party together, but it was almost cool, kind of word of mouth started happening. Hey, we're in. What was the reaction like by you and your team?
Well, the coaches were together in the coach's office, so we had a pretty fun moment. And I've seen a couple of videos from the kids. There were little clusters or pockets of kids watching in their apartments, and um, we're obviously really excited. We really like each other, and I don't think any of us were just ready for it to end. And we're certainly hopeful to hear our name called, but you just don't know. And I thought I'd hear something ahead of time, but I didn't. So I was kind of honestly, I was kind of thinking we weren't in because I hadn't heard anything. I guess I need to get some more experience of being in these regionals to know exactly how it works. But we're excited, and we're going to go play our best baseball this weekend.
So once you get the news, kind of what's next to start getting your team ready to practice again and get ready for this regional?
Well, I had told the kids that a couple hours after the selection show that we would either practice or have a team meeting to wrap things up. So we'd had that in place. So we practiced Monday and just had a light workout, and actually scrimmage this morning on Tuesday, just some pitchers that haven't thrown a lot the last few days, and just to keep the hitters sharp. So we got some good inter-squad practice work in today, and then we'll work out again here Wednesday, and then head over to Ruston Wednesday night and practice at the ballpark on Thursday.
Well, you get the good news that Alabama's headed back to the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2014. I know you feel like the SEC helped get you ready to make it to a regional, but what can you tell us about the non-conference schedule? Because you look up and down Alabama's schedule in those February, March months, you're playing teams that are also playing in an NCAA regional. I think Wright State may be the talk of the tournament with what they have coming up against Tennessee, but you got to be so proud that the non-conference schedule got you ready for this.
Well, probably our strongest metric on paper was our strength of schedule. We played the second toughest schedule in all of college baseball. And, I do that intentionally. I think you need to play some good teams in the preseason so that when you do play a great team in league play, that there's just not such a gap, but that you're not just overwhelmed. And obviously in our league, it's just incredibly difficult that you play 10 weekends of just dogfights against, all top 50 teams. So, we had some great wins in addition to, beating Tennessee twice and beating Arkansas 16-1 on the road. Had some great wins within league play, but we swept a 3-game series from Wright State, who is a really good team that won the Horizon and is going to be a tough out in their regional. Samford won the Southern Conference Tournament Championship. We beat them 19-3. McNeese State won the Southland Conference. We swept a 3-game set from them. So it wasn't just about league play for us. We did a good job of beating some good clubs outside of league play. And I think, the compilation of all that is what got us over the hump and is going to prepare us to play well this weekend.
We had one of these interviews leading up to the Arkansas series, getting ready for SEC play, and I remember we were talking about so many unknowns for this team because 7 of the 9 position players hadn't played SEC baseball before. Now you've had a roster go through a full SEC schedule, including 4 games in Hoover. What do you know more about your team now than maybe you did back in mid-March?
Roger, one of the fascinating things about being a college baseball coach is it always looks entirely different in May than what anybody thinks in January or February when you start. And, the lineup's always different. You always have some guys that really, make a jump or make strides, and maybe some guys don't do what you think. And then you have injuries and it forces other guys in. So we certainly had more than our share of all of that type of stuff. So really what I learned about our club is just how strong their intangibles are. And we had plenty of adversity, more than normal, whether it was the injuries or losing, 5 or 6 games in a row or getting walked off or blowing a lead. I mean, any kind of adversity that you can have on a club, we pretty much had at some point. And very rarely did our guys ever crack or flinch, and nobody was ever pointing the fingers. The pitchers weren't fussing at the hitters to score, and the hitters weren't fussing at the pitchers. And they truly stayed together. And, I've said this a lot. I've enjoyed this season, even if we had not gotten in as much as any group I've ever been a part of. I'm unbelievably proud of the culture and the environment that we have and the people that we have. And I think that's, one of the reasons that we've had the success that we've had.
And after the weekend against Mississippi State and Tuscaloosa, gets swept by a very good Bulldogs team, it seemed like you guys hit the reset button pretty well heading into Hoover. How much did you guys just really relish that opportunity to play for the first time as a group together postseason baseball?
These kids have done a great job all year of, kind of our mantra is just go play. Now there's situational baseball depending on the time of the game and the score, but just go play. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't take your defense out to the up to the plate when you're hitting. No matter what the score is or the opponent, just go play. And this group did a pretty good job of that. And we've got some kids on our team like Peyton Wilson and Landon Green and Brock Guffey and Sam Prater that grew up playing it or watching the SEC tournament. Those kids have all been to 30, 40, 50 SEC tournament games. And, it's funny, I'm coaching third base and there's a foul ball and I see kids, rolling down the hill and I'm like, that's probably my shortstop in 2032 or something, So I think those kids who are a core of our team and have a lot of leadership within our group, I think those four guys were especially excited to play over there. And I think it rubbed off on some of the others.
And also another Alabama kid that I'm sure dreamed of playing in the SEC tournament, Drew Williamson. We got to not only see him as a defensive replacement in one game, but he actually got to start another just very briefly after a hamate injury. Just what's his availability coming up this week for the regional?
Drew's going to play this weekend, and that's just one of many examples of the types of kids that we have. And I had no intention of playing Drew at all. And he came up to me and was like, Coach, I can play. I want to play. And I was like, you can't play. You just had surgery 2 weeks ago. What are you talking about? And so I went up to our athletic trainer, Sean Stryker, does a great job. And he's like, hey, I talked to the doctor and it's really just pain tolerance, strength in the hand, able to perform type deal. And I said, well, I ain't just going to run you in there. Let me see you swing the bat. And, I swung the bat and he looked pretty good. And I said, all right, let's give it a whirl. And he played well. He struck out once, but and then he lined out to right field and he's a great defender at first base. And, the score got a little bit out of hand, so I took him out. But we've been resting him for a couple of days, but he'll play this weekend and he'll play well.
And then what does the pitching depth look like for Alabama getting ready? Not asking to name the starting rotation or anything like that just yet, but just where does Alabama stand health-wise and depth-wise on the mound?
Well, we're going to be without Connor Prelup and Antoine Jean the rest of the way, and those are obviously two huge pieces, but everybody else is available this weekend. So we're going to start Tyler Ross the first game against NC State and then just kind of figure it out from there. Obviously, Dylan Smith will start a game, but we'll kind of just take it day by day and game by game and look at the matchups. And, you got to win somewhere between 3 and 5 games over a 3 or 4 day period. So I'm sure we'll be pitching a lot of guys and, they all need to pitch well.
Yeah, regionals can be tough. Similar to the SEC tournament, you're playing a lot of games in a very short amount of time. Just in your career, what's been kind of the keys to ball clubs that are able to win regionals? What does it take around this time of the year?
Well, staying in the winner's bracket, you put yourself in a tough spot if you don't win those first 2 games. So we're going to go all out to win the first game on Friday. We're going to go all out to win our game on Saturday. And, at that point, it's what you got left. And as the kids say, you unload the clip. That's what they've been saying, just talking about throwing what you got, unload the clip. I'm not a hunter, but I hear the kids say that. So, yeah, I think a big key is just staying in the winner's bracket. These tournaments, when you play really good teams like NC State and La Tech, when you've played an extra game and you got to beat somebody twice, that's just a really tall order. It's not impossible, but we're going to do our best to stay away from that.
I'm sure right now your focus is just on the first game against NC State, but in the 24 hours or so since we did learn the bracket for the Ruston Regional, just what have you learned about Louisiana Tech, Rider, and then your first opponent, NC State?
Yeah, so you have to do some prep this week ahead of time. Just trying to prep for a team in 18-hour period is challenging. So, obviously North Carolina State is a really, really good team. They look like an SEC team when you watch them on tape. They're physical, they're athletic, really good offensive group, and 3 right-handed starters that throw a bunch of strikes, and then 2 lefties in the pen with some velocity and some stuff. So that'll be a real challenge. Louisiana Tech is older. They've won a bunch of games. They got a bunch of guys that are 22, 23 years old that just really know how to play baseball. And I think they're like the only team I've seen this year sitting over 300 as a team. You don't see that. And they got some length to their lineup. And Rider, man, they're hot. Any team that wins a conference tournament, they're playing their best baseball multiple days in a row. So it's a tough regional. All 3 teams that we're going to play against are really, really good clubs. And we're going to have to play really, really well consistently in order to stick around till the end of the weekend.
Coach, as we start to wrap things up, just what's your final message to the Alabama baseball fans that have been sticking with you through thick and thin all throughout not only this year, but your entire tenure in Tuscaloosa? And how much Crimson do you hope to see in the Love Shack coming up in Ruston this weekend?
Our fans have been amazing, Roger. We have great fans in every sport, and our fans have been more patient than I've been, more positive and more patient, and been unbelievably fair and given us time to rebuild the program and to do it the right way. So thankful for all of them. And I just hope that everybody watches and support us. I hope to see some Crimson in the stands down in Ruston. And, it's within driving distance of Tuscaloosa and Birmingham. So really hopeful some folks will get in the car and come see us. And if they're not able to do that, at least be watching on the computer, yelling at the TV. And I can just tell you that the kids are excited. And I don't have any doubts that we'll play our best baseball this weekend.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to it. Thank you so much for spending some time with us on Crimson Drive. And hey, if all goes well this weekend, love to do it again next week. Roll Tide. All the best to you.
That's a deal, Roger. Thank you. Roll Tide.
Our thanks to Coach Bo, and you heard at the end of the interview, if Alabama can win this regional, make it to the Super Regionals, likely against number 1 Arkansas, he'll be right back here on Crimson Drive next week, and we certainly hope we will continue talking Crimson Tide baseball because that would mean a lot of good things happen coming up this weekend in Ruston. A lot of good things have happened for the Alabama softball team, mostly in Tuscaloosa over the last few weeks with the SEC Tournament, NCAA Regionals, and the Super Regionals, and now it's a trip to the College World Series, the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City. That's where we say hello to Tom Canterbury and Gray Robertson, our outstanding softball broadcasters, as they prepare you for Alabama's run in the Women's College World Series.
Thank you so much, Roger. Welcome into the Alabama softball preview portion of the Crimson Tide. Tom Canterbury alongside Gray Robertson. And Gray, we are here in OKC, and we're just a few hours away from Alabama and Arizona here, game number 1 for the Crimson Tide here in the 2021 Women's College World Series.
I know, right? We're in OKC. I mean, we've got the Women's College World Series back after missing it last year. It's such a great time in this sport, and I'm so excited for this game that we've got coming up on Thursday, along with a great slate of games that we've got all day Thursday starting at 11 a.m.
Yeah, we've got the other side of the bracket has Oklahoma and James Madison, as well as Oklahoma State and Georgia. Alabama taking on Arizona, and then that's going to be followed by UCLA taking on Florida State. The winners and the losers will play each other in the next rounds. It's a double elimination tournament, and Alabama, the 3 overall seed, not an easy draw with Arizona. It's the second year in a row, or second World Series in a row, I should say, that Alabama and Arizona are matching up. Alabama knocked out the Wildcats in 2019 in a 2-0 victory. And these are 2 teams that at the beginning of the season were 2 of the top 4 that we kept talking about as possibilities of winning the national championship. Arizona had a rough stretch at one point, kind of fell off, but they have certainly peaked at the right time. Alabama's done a great job of getting through some injuries and is now fielding as good of a team as they've had all year. So should be a heck of a matchup.
It really should be. I mean, we're seeing the juggernaut offense of Arizona battle the pitching depth that Alabama has. And, the Wildcats have rolled into this World Series at their peak, like you said, especially offensively. I mean, you look at the lineup up and down, you've got half of them batting over 300 in the NCAA tournament, 3 of their best offensive threats hitting over 400, including probably maybe the 5th best player on the team hitting 550 in the NCAA tournament, Charlize Palacios, and just that offense has really taken off. The concern for Arizona was, could that offense travel? And we saw in the regular season, the answer was no. In the postseason, the answer was yes. Arizona rolled into Fayetteville, pretty much was in control of that super regional against Arkansas. But they're taking on a pitching staff in Alabama that has risen to the occasion when it matters most, particularly Montana Fouts, who, again, continues to go on this unbelievable tear here during this win streak. And then we saw maybe the best thing of all in Super Regionals when Lexi Kilfoyle got the start in Game 2, went the full way, gave up just the 1 earned run, 5 hits, struck out 7. She was really, really sharp, and I think knowing that she can do that against a quality offense makes Alabama even more dangerous here in OKC.
It really does. And that, you have Montana Fouts, who is over 300 strikeouts for the season. And it seems like every time she goes out, she breaks another record. And, but you have a 1A and 1B situation as far as aces for this team now, with Lexi Kilfoyle pitching as well as she did against a team like Kentucky in Super Regionals, coming back from an injury which required rest. So Alabama, as good of a 1-2 punch as anybody that is here in OKC. And they're going to need it against teams like Arizona, and then whoever they face in the second game, whether it be Florida State or UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the World Series, right? Everybody's good. So you've got to have your best every single day, whether it's
Right.
Arizona, whether it's James Madison. You got to be ready to go. And, I think that Alabama having that pitching depth really does add a new dynamic, just because we've seen over the last 5 years that the sport has moved away from one arm carrying you to a national championship. Now, usually you will see one arm dominate through the World Series and pitch the most innings, but historically, kind of taking 2019 out of context for UCLA, because Garcia did carry that team then, but for the most part, teams have relied on another starter to pitch a critical 7 innings or even 4 innings of relief. And Alabama's got that option, not just with Lexi Kilfoyle, but with Crystal Goodman as well, Sarah Cornell, Jayla Torrance. I mean, they've got a lot of options in the circle. And I think if we're looking at overall staffs, not even just 1-2 punches, but overall staffs, Alabama's is the deepest and the best here in OKC.
Got some good news here this week as well. We saw that Bailey Hemphill and Montana Fouts named first-team All-Americans. Kaylee Tao, a third-team All-American for Alabama. So 3 more names added, but not the first time those names have been added to the list of All-Americans. But can't say enough about what Bailey Hemphill has done for this team. And Patrick Murphy, a couple weeks ago said that he thinks that she is the best right-handed power hitter in Alabama softball history, which is certainly saying something. So an opportunity for her coming in here in her 5th year, last chance for Bailey Hemphill, an All-American, to come in and really help lead her team.
Absolutely. And Bailey was really quite tremendous in the Women's College World Series in 2019. She went 0 for 4 in the last game against Oklahoma. Prior to that, had been 5 for 10 in the entire World Series. And she has found a way to make an impact offensively when she is walked 2 or 3 times a game. If she only gets 1 hit, Bailey Hemphill makes it count. And that, I think, is what makes her such a potent offensive threat for Alabama. And when people have walked her, the All-American Kaylee Tao, now 3-time All-American Kaylee Tao, has been hitting over 500 on balls that she has put in play in the at-bat right after Hemphill has been walked. And overall in those situations is 10 for 24. So I think that it makes Alabama a tough offense to figure out. It's tough to plan for because, you say you don't want the best player, which is Bailey Hemphill, to beat you, but the players right behind her have been beating teams up all postseason long. So it really does make things tough for opposing pitching coaches.
So Alabama taking on Arizona coming up later on today, actually. It'll be a 6 o'clock first pitch, 5:50 the airtime on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. And then a victory today would send Alabama into the winner's bracket, and they would play tomorrow at 8:30, 8:20 the airtime on the network. A loss, you'd have Friday off, and then you'd come back and play Saturday on Survival Saturday. So Alabama looking to do something they have not done since 2014 here in the Women's College World Series, and that is win its first game and get in the winner's bracket. It's amazing how much easier it is when you win that first game. 2018, Florida State did lose their first game and fought their way out of the loser's bracket to win the Women's College World Series, but much more often than not, it's somebody who is able to win at least their first, if not their first 2 games, that really has a leg up to win the World Series. We saw it in 2019. Alabama lost that first game, fought so hard, but ended up having to beat Oklahoma twice on Sunday, and that's just so hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, especially this year when you look at how talented the top 2 teams are, Oklahoma and UCLA. And if you're in a position to where you have to beat one of those 2 teams twice to stay alive and move on to the Champ Series, it's a really short list of teams that can do that. So it is more than ever, I think, critical that Alabama finds a way to win the first 2 games, move on to that Sunday semifinal where they've got a little bit of house money to play with and have a chance to go to the Champ Series. Because, I know that there are 2 unseeded teams in the field for the first time since 2012, but I feel like the talent overall is just so tough across the board here in OKC. And again, if you fall to the loser's bracket early, I think it's going to be really difficult, no matter who you are, to come out of that unscathed and get to the championship series.
So once again, Alabama, Arizona, 6 o'clock first pitch, coming up later, and we'll put Alabama into the winner's bracket, hopefully coming up tomorrow. And as always, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Follow Alabama Softball for all the game times and information as that moves along. And we will see you later on here today on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Thanks to Tom and Gray for that detailed report on Alabama softball. Now let's hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Patrick Murphy, as he met with the media on Wednesday, previewing not only Alabama against Arizona, which is coming up a little bit later today, but also what he hopes to see for the sport of softball over this week in OKC.
This is the pre-tournament press conference featuring the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're joined by head coach Patrick Murphy and Alabama career home run leader and being hit by foul ball leader Bailey Hemphill. This is the Crimson Tide's 13th Women's College World Series appearance after having defeated Kentucky in the Super Regional. Questions for coach or the student athlete will go to Jenny Carlson.
Oh, goodness. I'm first up. This is the pressure. Hey, Patrick, Jenny Carlson with the Oklahoman. Hey, I wanted to ask you sort of a broad question here about instant replay. You guys, I think, had it in the SEC tournament maybe a couple years ago. I'm wondering if you can remember anything about how that went. And now with every game broadcast on ESPN, obviously cameras are available. Is that something you feel like has been talked at all about that could maybe become something that we see used in the game, especially in the NCAA tournament?
Well, Jenny, first of all, thanks for the question. It was great to see you. It's like old home week. This is why we love coming up here, because I think I've known you for probably 10 to 15 years. I don't know how long that's been, but it was awesome in the SEC tournament. The thing that I was worried about, other coaches possibly, was the time involved. Once you do ask for a review, how long does it take? And it was so smooth. It was unbelievable. We had 2 umpires and the head of SEC umpires in Birmingham at the replay center, just like they do for baseball. And I honestly can't remember like a long delay after a challenge. So I thought it went really smooth. I think you could do it all over the country. I think in the SEC, I believe we're going to do it throughout all the 24-game season next year. We were going to do it this year, but because of COVID, we pushed it back. So I see it happening more and more in the future.
Cliff Brent.
Yeah, Coach, I've got a couple of things for you. First of all, obviously the place looks a lot different than it did in 2019. What stands out the most to you about the improved facilities? And then what more would you like to see?
Well, the first thing was when we walked in, I said, can I go see the new seats? And it literally looks like, you know, Bryant-Denny Stadium or Yankee Stadium or a Major League Baseball stadium with the upper deck. And then the hallway down to the practice fields, you used to be able to see all the way through. And then now it looks like a true Major League concourse area. So kudos to everybody involved. I know we've been waiting a long time to get up here to play here, and we can't wait to see all the fans. Something else, you probably ask me at the end of it, and I'll have a couple things. But right now it just looks really, really good.
And Bailey, how about for you as a student athlete, the stadium improvements?
I think it's just really awesome to see the additions made since 2019. I mean, it already looks bigger and there's no fans in the stands. I mean, like Murph said, that was the first thing we looked at when we got here. So I'm excited to see what it looks like full stands this week.
Barry Trammell.
Yeah, Patrick, Barry Trammell from the Oklahoman. When this thing first came to Oklahoma City 30 years ago, 1-0 was the standard. We ended up changing rules and yellow ball and all that stuff, try to get a little more offense. Has the pendulum swung too much? Is there too much offense in the game today?
Thanks for the question. And again, another old friend. Appreciate it. I don't know. After this week, I think that's another good question to ask us at the end of the series, because you know the old adage, it's good pitching beats good hitting. So we'll see if that happens this week, because I know there's some very, very, very good pitchers, but there are some really scary offenses, mainly Oklahoma, Arizona. I mean, scary, scary home run hitters. So I think at times when we go on the road and we play at a park, the first thing I say, and I don't say it out loud to my team, but I say, man, they should have put their fences back maybe 10 feet. And when a lot of these stadiums were built, they were 190, 220, 190. And 190 is way too cheap of a home run right now. I mean, you can hit a pop-up and it goes out. And some of the stadiums that they built, they can't do anything with it because there's a berm area or there's basically a brick wall or something that you can't move it back at all. So if you're building a new stadium, make sure that you can move your fences back slightly. I would go at least 200, 225 in center. And 225, you can get a lot of triples in the game, and that makes it exciting as well.
Michael Casagrande.
Hey, guys. For both Patrick and Bailey, I know 2 years ago you guys were there. It was the first time I think anybody on the current roster had been there. How much does that play a factor in not being as in awe of being in that moment?
Start with Bailey, please.
I think that's a huge advantage for us. We have some experienced players on this team. I think there's, like 6 or 7 of us that are seniors in the starting lineup. So having that experience, not having that shock factor, the excitement is still there, obviously playing in the World Series, but being able to control the emotions a little better is going to be key for us.
Yeah,
Coach Murphy?
A reporter asked me this morning about that as well. And, this past weekend in Super Regionals, Lexi Kilfoyle's out there as a second-year freshman pitching the second game, and I was talking to KJ Haney next to me in the dugout, and I said, this is the first time she's seen this type of crowd. And all of the freshmen, they basically had not gone through that. They hadn't been to a true Rhodes House experience. And I think it could help her this week because we had 3,700, 4,000 people, and, here it's going to be triple that. But I think just that experience of playing in front of that big of a crowd at home will help them this week. And like Bailey said, we have the 7 true seniors and the 4 other seniors that have been here. So experience kind of is on our side.
Ronald Smith.
Thank you. My question is for Bailey, and it's no question that this also will be your last year with the team. So right now in this moment, how is that sitting for you, knowing that whatever happens in this tournament will be the last time you'll be donning the jersey of Alabama?
I just feel blessed right now. I mean, this is what you want to achieve when you play college softball, is play at the World Series. So knowing that the last time I put the uniform on at the World Series it makes my career ending a little easier, and hopefully I can finish with the national championship.
Katie Wyndham.
Hey guys, I have a question for both Murph and Bailey. Does it matter who I start with?
No.
Okay, I'll start with Murph. Obviously, y'all played Arizona, or you have a lot of experience playing against them, but played them twice in Tuscaloosa last year, played them in Arizona the year before, and obviously at the World Series. So just kind of talk about what are some of the advantages and disadvantages to playing a team and program you're so familiar with?
I'm glad you made it up, Katie. First, Coach Canterbury is the gold standard of college softball, the all-time winningest coach, and he knows absolutely the game inside and out. So it's an honor to play against them the first round. But you're right. We played them last year twice at home, and that was really Montana's biggest first game when we went there in 19. And they're very similar to us, because they have a lot of kids back. They have a lot of experience in the World Series, just some great players. Obviously, they have an Olympian behind the plate who's, one of the best in the country. So I think, it could go both ways because, they know us as well. So I think it's going to be a very intriguing first-round matchup for sure.
And Katie, your question for Bailey.
Yes. And then for Bailey, just kind of talk about, he just asked you about this being your last experience, but being back in Oklahoma City, just kind of talk about your individual excitement level and then just kind of the level of the team after no World Series last year, just to be here in Oklahoma City and finally kind of reach this goal.
Yeah, I think especially after last year, the uncertainty of what laid ahead of us, I thought my career was over last year when the season got canceled. And so obviously it was a big blessing that I got to come back this year, and to finish my career at the World Series again is is where I wanted to finish out my career at Alabama. But I think the team's just really excited to be able to compete for a national championship, especially after not having that chance last year.
Eric Bailey.
Hey guys, this is for both the coach and Bailey. Kind of doing a fun feature on dugout chants and just their importance in the game of softball. How much fun are they? Coach, do you have to adjust to them? Just your thoughts on dugout chants.
Start with Bailey, please.
I think the dugout chants get more and more creative every year. I think with the age of TikTok nowadays, those play a part. I'm not really sure. I'm a little older on the team, so I'm not really sure. But we have some very creative people. It makes the game more fun during the game because sometimes when it's 98 degrees and the fifth inning, it starts to drown out a little bit. But you get those creative dances and chants. It makes it a little more fun.
Coach Murphy.
And if she's too old, I'm ancient, so I don't even know what TikTok is. So, but my favorite probably of all time is our athletic director before Mr. Byrne was a gentleman named Bill Battle, who was one of my all-time favorites. And the team actually came up with a chant in his honor, and it was perfect because when a batter would have 2 strikes, they would chant for her to battle. And he actually heard it a couple times, so he felt honored as well.
Caleb.
This is a question for Coach Murph. This is Caleb McCurry from the Oklahoman, by the way. I want you to talk more about Mike Condrea a little bit. We talked to Patty earlier, and she said that, he's someone that, the sport really looks up to with the amount of times he's been to the World Series and his success. What do you think contributes to his success, and what do you think makes him one of the most dominant coaches in the sport?
Well, I can remember being up here, and I think it was a sportscaster from Oklahoma City. We were going to play Arizona, and he asked me the same question, and I said, I want to be like Mike. And at the time, I was pretty young, and we were new up here, and he was the guy that everybody looked up to in softball and had won an ungodly amount of championships and games. And he really, Arizona was the gold standard, and he was the gold standard, and he had coached Olympic teams to gold medals. And, he has stayed current for a long time, and that's pretty cool as a coach. And, sometimes you think the game passes somebody by. It has not with him. And, I heard a quote on the other day when he was playing at Arkansas Super Regionals, and Jenny Dalton-Hill was the announcer, and she played for him at Arizona. And she had said something like Mike had said that at the beginning of his career, it was all about wins and losses, championships and trophies. And now towards the end of it, it was about the relationships with his kids and the student athletes. And I thought that was really cool because a lot of people probably could learn from him in that aspect. But he's just one of the best that's ever been.
Last question to Barry.
Yeah, Patrick, you mentioned when you came in about looking at the stadium and the sort of awesomeness of the structure. How do you foresee that affecting the atmosphere at all? Will it increase it? Is it a chance to decrease it? What are your thoughts?
No, it'll increase it, Barry, for sure. And to me, you want it to be like an event, a special atmosphere for 8 teams. The last 8 standing in college softball, and when you go to the national championship, it should be like the pinnacle of the sport. And how can you not feel that way when you walk in and see the stadium? And like Bailey said, we walk in and it's empty right now. I can't imagine what it's going to be like. And I don't even know the capacity of 15, 16,000. But it's also like surround sound in your living room. You have the outfield bleachers. You have right behind each foul line. You have behind home plate, and then you have above home plate. And the sound itself is going to be incredible. So I can't wait to see it. And we can't say thanks enough on behalf of our team, our school, to both everybody in Oklahoma City, USA Softball, and the NCAA Softball Committee for really raising the bar for our sport.
Coach Murphy and Bailey, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So Coach Murphy giving us a detailed preview of Alabama softball, and as we start to take a look at our weekend schedule, it begins today with Alabama softball, that all-important first game of the Women's College World Series, as we take a look at our weekend schedule. For the softball team again today against Arizona, 6 p.m. Central. Tom and Gray will have us covered on the radio. If Alabama wins, they'll advance to the winners bracket coming up tomorrow from Oklahoma City, and then Saturday in the losers bracket. Sunday, the semifinals. Got to determine 2 championship teams to meet in the championship series. It'll be played Monday to Tuesday, and if necessary, a winner-take-all Wednesday game. So it's going to be a really frenzied week of Alabama softball at the Women's College World Series, as we certainly hope Alabama will win its first national championship since 2012. Then the baseball team, the NCAA Ruston Regional. The run will start 1 p.m. Central on Friday against NC State, and then Saturday and Sunday, just keep it locked to the RolledTide.com, to the Crimson Tide Sports Network social media accounts, because a lot could change quickly for Alabama based on wins and losses. There you see the game times that could be coming up on Saturday and Sunday, and also Monday, if necessary. There could be a championship game for the regional coming up as well at 3 o'clock, but we certainly hope that Alabama is staying in the winners bracket. That's going to be the key, according to Coach Bohannon, coming up at the NCAA Ruston Regional. It's going to wrap up this busy edition of Crimson Drive, as I got to get ready for some Alabama baseball this weekend. Chris Stewart and I will have the call for all of Alabama's games coming up at the Ruston Regional, as we certainly hope the Tide baseball team begins a great run in the NCAA tournament. We know the softball team already has done its job in one part, getting to the Women's College World Series, and up next is chasing down what would be national championship number 2 for the Crimson Tide in softball. Special thanks to Brad Bohannon, as well as Tom Canterbury, Gray Robertson for joining us. Thanks as well to Alabama Athletics for providing us the video of Coach Murphy's press conference from Oklahoma City. Thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our outstanding Facebook Live producer, for putting this entire show together. For everybody with the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying thank you for watching Crimson Drive. It's presented to you by our friends at Coca-Cola. Certainly hope with baseball and softball keep winning, as what next week could be a championship edition once again of Crimson Drive coming up. We've said that a lot, whether it's basketball, football, gymnastics, softball already this year. We've said championship edition a lot. Certainly hope that continues next week. Until then, roll tide, everyone.